Janny Moons. I'm Josie the Mustang, the Afro-Latina Regina George of Witches, and you are aligned with the frequency of the Lua Nova podcast. In today's episode, you saw the title, and before you take off running, come back. No, really, seriously, come back here. I am not expecting you to eat candy corn, and you don't have to actually use candy corn, but you see, one of my loved ones suggested the use of candy corn, and I said, bet. You think I can't when I can? Absolutely I can. So to close out the witches month of October, I am teaching you a Halloween spell. If you live somewhere in the world where Halloween is not a thing and it's not very popular, like in the United States, that's perfectly fine. I still want you to be able to join in the festivities. Definitely feel free to alter this spell to fit what you want, etc. Even the colors of the candles, you all know I always tell you to focus on the intention. And you can probably hear my charm bracelet just going over here, but let's get started. So before I even get to the spell, feel free to fast forward through all of this, but I'm going to actually give you the supplies that you're going to need first. You're going to need Halloween candy. And again, if you live somewhere where Halloween is not as big of a deal as it is here in the United States, I just need you to get a bag of candy, and preferably something that comes packaged, such as the mini Snickers, something like that, Hershey's Kisses, something along those lines. If that's the route you want to go, or if you live somewhere where Halloween is not really a thing. But here in the United States, of course, Halloween candy is very easy to find, and it comes in tiny individually wrapped pieces typically because it's meant to give out to children. Okay. So, and adults sometimes, and even pets. They even have trick-or-treating for pets. I don't have the kind of Pomeranian that can do that. But before I keep getting sidetracked, that is the first thing that you're going to need. The second thing that you might need, depending on how you want to do this spell, is a candle. It can be any size candle, but preferably black or orange. If you don't have access to a black or orange candle, you can't find that, that's perfectly fine. Use whatever it is that you can find, should you choose to use a candle. I recommend for this type of a spell to use a tea light size candle. If you're not familiar with what a tea light is, I'm going to spell it out for you, and I'm not obviously talking down to anybody, but everybody's different, guys. Everybody's also different when they come to doing spells, and they might be like, well, we don't call it a tea light. But for those of you who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, tea light, T-A-L-I-G-H-T. That's what I'm referring to. Okay. So feel free to look that up. And I'm sorry, I really need some water. I was coughing heavily before I started this. And my water is on the other side of the room, and I didn't want to stop. But you're going to need that and a pen and paper. I don't care what color the pen is. Use whatever color that resonates with you. And for this particular spell, it's about sweetening our manifestations or sweetening somebody who's not being very kind. So you don't necessarily have to worry so much about the color of the ink. And I oftentimes tell you I always tell you this. The intention is the important part of the spell. So always focus more on that than the tools themselves. Okay. With that being said, now you know what supplies you're going to need. Always use fire safety. If you use disposable pans to put your candles in, that's fine. Whatever it is whatever herbs you want to use to put in the candle, whatever spell oils, all of that, I'm going to leave up to you. I can recommend to you to use honey or sugar, and be very careful about that. I'm really careful about using those in spells because like I told you, I think in a previous episode, I live in an area that has a lot of like rabbits, squirrels, etc., trees. So I have to be careful about the kind of riffraff that can come through the door. So that's just me. You all know I live in Texas. And for the creepy people who always wonder what part of Texas I live in, I would like to know why you need to know that information. You don't ever need to know what part of Texas I live in. I was born and raised in Dallas, and to be specific, Oak Cliff. So I do not live near Dallas anymore. Anyway, that's for everybody who needs to know what it is that you're going to need for this spell. I'm going to get to the spell in a moment, but I have a lot that I want to talk to you all about. This is a chat. We're going to chat before we get to the spell. If you don't want to chat with me, I mean, wow. Why are you here? But for those of you who do, the first thing I want to discuss, and I want to discuss this especially with people who are new to spiritual work. That doesn't mean you're a witch. It could just mean that sometimes you do different types of spiritual cleansing, etc. And you're tired of being shamed. Many of you who are not new here know that the entire brand, Lua Nova, is a big part of that is taking up for people like you. And not in this fake, performative way, because I get nothing out of, taking up for people. I just refuse to allow people to be bullied, especially people who are exploring different types of spirituality and who are exploring manifestation, etc. I'm not going to allow somebody to shame you. If I come across it, I'm most certainly going to call it out, and I'll get to a specific person that I called out in a second. I'm not going to linger too much on this dum-dum because she is most certainly not worth it. But the first dum-dum I want to call out is someone who claims to be a witch. She posted a TikTok where she stitched another creator. The original creator looked to be very young. She looked to be like, from what I can tell, maybe no older than 18. And new moons who are new here. I am a baby millennial, but I'm still a millennial. So instinctively, I'm always going to feel like I need to watch over and protect people who are younger, especially people like this young woman who was in the original video that was stitched. In the original video, all she was talking about was Florida water. She didn't mention hoodoo. She didn't mention any other clothes practice. She didn't mention burning white sage. Nothing like that. And if you're not familiar, white sage is something that only indigenous people really need to be using. It's kind of makes a lot of us uncomfortable when some of you start using tools that you don't know about and you don't really understand the background of it and it has zero to do with your culture. It's disrespectful. Okay. So I'm just going to put that out there. However, I don't get angry about it because that's between you and the universe. And when I'm referring to the universe, I'm including God. So that's between y'all. Okay. It has nothing to do with me and my practices and my manifestations. And the reason why so many people cannot manifest and cannot create the life that they want is that you're too focused on everybody else and what they're doing. And so that is my issue with the woman who stitched this young woman. You claim to be such a powerful witch, but in your response to this young woman, you were snarky and rude for no reason. She responds to this young woman by saying she doesn't even know that that's not even real Florida water. That's not Florida water. Nowhere in her video does she say how to make Florida water. Nowhere in her video does she say why she feels that it's not real Florida water. All we saw was the bottle in the original video. And because she cut out so much of the original video, we only got to see a part of it, but I did get to see the original. And just like I told the original creator, I'm going to tell you that you don't ever allow somebody to try to tell you that you're wrong when you're in no way, shape, or form trying to harm anybody. You're in no way, shape, or form trampling all over somebody else's culture and somebody else's practice. This young baby witch was simply telling people a spiritual tool that she uses. There are many types of spiritual tools that you can use for cleansing. You can use brooms and to clear the energy. You can use sound cleansing. You can use selenite, which is a crystal. And you know what I use the most of? I'm going to blow the minds of the fake witches right now and the fake spiritualists right now. The overused tool in this household is rubbing alcohol because of its cleaning abilities, because it is associated with being flammable. So think of fire cleansing. Of course, be careful with using rubbing alcohol or Florida water because they're both flammable. If you're using anything that's flammable, it's, use common sense. But I use rubbing alcohol because it's one, the easiest to come by, and two, because of its properties of being an astringent. They use it in hospitals even. So the properties that it is associated with work very well for me, and they're easy to come by. You will oftentimes hear me spraying my tarot cards, and that is a mixture of rubbing alcohol and oh my God, why did I go Black Rooster Water? And I've talked to you all briefly about Black Rooster Water in a previous episode. That is more of a cultural practice. You all know I'm Brazilian and Mexican. You know that by now. So that has a lot to do with my background. But there's a million different ways to do spiritual cleansing. Because I've gone over it so many times, I won't again. But what you don't get to do, so-called spiritualists and so-called badass witches, is allow your low self-esteem and low self-worth to reflect on somebody else. Go heal. Go educate yourself as well. And also keep in mind that everybody is not starting from the same place. Everybody doesn't have the same access that you do. And if you are such a badass witch, then you would know that our ancestors used whatever was available, even if that was just dirt, even if that was just salt. So do you think that I haven't just used table salt before? At a restaurant, I remember there being some very negative energy that I didn't want to be around, and I immediately grabbed the salt because that's all I had on hand. And of course, I always wear protection crystals, bracelets, etc. But I use what's available the same way that my ancestors did, okay? So if you don't get that, then I don't know who who you learned from or who you claim that you learned from, but I can see right through you. Okay. And people like you are why I'm the Afro-Latina Regina George, because I will never allow somebody to be bullied when they weren't in any way, shape, or form trying to harm anybody. And if you are new to these practices, know that this is always going to be a safe space for you. There's this creator, his name is Zach Campbell, and he used to do these sketches on YouTube. I don't know if he still does. I haven't watched Zach Campbell in a long time because I don't really watch a lot of YouTube. I don't have time. But he used to say, in his sketches when he was doing he was pretending to be a therapist, this is a safe space. This is a safe space for you, honey. Okay. Always remember that I am not going to attack you because you are new to spirituality and you might have questions, because maybe you're not informed about something and you need to be. For instance, when I said, hey, if you use something and it's it's part of a closed practice, or it's part of a different culture that has nothing to do with yours, and you're trampling all over it and being awful, that is between you and the universe. But don't expect somebody like myself to clean it up for you. But also don't say that we didn't warn you. However, I'm not about to get my blood pressure up and get angry about it. And the second person that I want to briefly call out, there was a beautiful makeup artist, and I am so annoyed that I don't have her name on hand. I could have sworn that I put it in my phone and I checked, and I must not have. I probably, knowing me, accidentally deleted the note, and now it's not even in the deleted folder. But I have no idea. I probably accidentally texted it to someone and they had no idea what I was talking about. But she is this outstanding makeup artist who did makeup to embody Santísima, La Santa Muerte. As you all know, I am a child of La Santa Muerte, and so I take my connection with Santa very, very seriously. You will never hear me really call her mother because of the connection I have with my mother, but she is my spiritual mother. And so when people don't actually know the background of a deity and they just start spewing stupidity, it's hard to sit back and watch that. And from a human standpoint, I understand if something is off-putting to you. However, never allow it to make you angry, because that's exactly what that person wants from you. That person's well aware that they're uneducated. That person's well aware of their ignorance and their stupidity, and that will never stop your blessings. That will never stop your manifestations unless you allow it to. And this original creator simply posted the most beautiful makeup of her dressed as Santísima in pink. And my Santa altar is pink and very blinged out, lots of bling. And it even has this beautiful pink neon light. I will never show my altars, any of my altars, because they're very sacred to me. You can see tiny little elements here and there in some of my TikToks, but I'm very particular. And the large Santa that is on my altar is pink. And so that's what originally stopped me when I saw this video. Not to mention she was so kind to me. So I thought to myself, wow, what an outstanding person. But unfortunately, she received a disgusting comment from a so-called Christian attacking her for no reason and saying that basically she was going to burn in hell. I need those of you who claim to be Christian to understand something. We don't believe in the concept of hell. So you can't condemn us to something we don't even believe in. That's something